and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are going to cover the Gaza flotilla again, but tonight we will have someone with us who was actually on board of the ship when it was attacked by the Israelis. Now, as you remember, and we have covered it probably about 3 different programs, we have talked about the aid ship to Gaza that was, actually it was a flotilla of 6 ships that came from different countries, Greece, Turkey, and they were loaded with people from all over the world, taking humanitarian supplies to the people of Gaza, the besieged people of Gaza. Well, tonight we are going to be speaking with Ken O'Keefe. He is a United States Marine, and he was on one of those ships, the biggest one, the Mavi Marmara, and actually he fought it out with the Israeli soldiers who came down. At one time, he had actually took the gun away from the Israeli soldiers. He took a handgun and then he separated another soldier from his machine gun. Now, they could have, of course, done something with those machine guns, but they did not. So we're going to find out what is a U.S. Marine doing on top of one of those ships that were loaded with supplies and toys, food, medicines, toys, whatever you can think of a human being would need. It was on that ship. Basically, like I said, most of it was food and medicine and toys for the children, because Gaza has been besieged for over 3 years now, and the Israelis, even though they left Gaza, or they told the world that they left Gaza, but actually what they had done is they made it cheaper for themselves to manage Gaza. What they had done is they took their soldiers out of Gaza, but they besieged and they laid siege on the territory where no one can go in or out, and they control everything that goes in. They control the amount of food that reaches the Gaza Strip, and they also control the amount of medicine. And according to the United Nations, the Gazans, or the Palestinians in Gaza, they're not even getting half of what they supposed to get as human beings, or what the United Nations had actually set up as a standard for a human to consume. Well, but unfortunately, these ships, they were not armed. They were in international waters, and the Israelis came down with their big machine guns and started shooting at people. Well, tonight we are going to get the full story from someone who was actually on board of those ships. But before we go there, we have a little clip that we're going to show you. One of them is for Libby Davis, who is a Canadian member of Parliament. She's asked a couple of questions, and she's talking about Palestine and the Palestinians, and also we have a couple of other clips, but the third clip will be for our guest tonight, Ken O'Keefe, who has been involved in the effort to free the Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank. So let's go ahead and play these clips just to set the stage up for our talks with Ken.
So, just a little bit of background. Would you care to say what your...
Thank you.
When do you believe that the occupation of Israel started? 48 or 67? Yeah.
48. I mean,
Okay.
it's the longest occupation occupation in the world, but I'm not going to argue numbers. It's too long, right? It's this is the longest occupation in the world, and people are suffering. I mean, I've been to the West Bank and Gaza twice, so I've seen myself what's going on.
And what do you believe as the solutions for the current conflict?
Well, I think Israel has to remove itself from illegal settlements, and they're basically all illegal. They have to dismantle the wall. They have to drop the siege. I'm not necessarily putting this all in the order. I mean, the first thing is actually to drop the siege of Gaza. I mean, people are really, really suffering there, and you can't even get basic necessities in it. And it, you know, it's to isolate people to that extent, to take away people's basic human rights is, to me, unconscionable. So, I mean, that's number one, is to stop the siege. And it seems like, I mean, it's ironic, but unfortunately what happened with the first vote and the Turkish citizen and the Turkish American being killed, I mean, it has now caused the world, I think, the international community to stop and think. And even, as I understand it, even the Americans are now thinking that, you know, they've got to do something about the siege. So I think that's number one. But beyond that, I mean, there has to be some kind of settlement, whether it's negotiated or whether, you know, it's somehow imposed. Palestinians have to have their land back.
So what a long-term political agreement would it go revert back to the green zone?
I mean,
or
you know what? I'm not someone who's going to negotiate that. There will be people.
If you were,
well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I'm that enough knowledgeable. I've seen what that green line is and how much land is being taken, and it seems to me that that's got to be the starting point. But you know, you're asking me very specific questions that I'm not someone who's there. I'm a politician in Canada who's demanding of our government that they do more to speak out and not just capitulate to whatever Israel wants, right? So, you know, you're
but you are supporting a boycott of Israel and divestment.
No, I haven't actually even gone that far. I mean, you've got to understand that I'm probably the strongest supporter in Parliament. There is virtually no information in the political arena or understanding about the BDS movement. People are actually afraid to speak out on this issue. So we have to understand that the political reality in Canada is, I think, worse than many other countries, where people who are, like elected people who are sympathetic, actually are afraid to speak out. And so the whole notion of a BDS, I mean, I'm very excited that it's grown so much in sort of a civil society, but in terms of the political arena, it's not even being debated.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and continue with the other clips, and then we will go to Ken.
Gilad Atzmon, he's in London. He's an Israeli writer and musician who once served, indeed, in the Israeli army. Mr. Atzmon, thanks for being with us. We'll talk about your particular thoughts on what happened in a minute or so, but more broadly before that, what do you think of the Israeli media's reaction to the attack on the flotilla?
Yeah, I think that it's a reflection of Israeli collective madness. It is very clear that Israel was the aggressor here. And if you look at the Israeli media, the way they describe it as lynch, or that the Israeli soldiers were ambushed, they are now mocked by the entire international community. On a deeper thought, it is very clear that Israelis have lost the capacity to understand the process of causality in history. You know, they obviously don't realize that they were the aggressor. And if they cannot understand such a simple process in history, it is not surprising that they don't, that they fail to understand the terrible circumstances that followed the Jewish history for so long.
Murderers. The whole world needs to unite. Yesterday, and
attacked me again last night in the detention center in Tel Aviv at the airport. Of course, this is nothing compared to what others have gotten. Palestinians get this every day. This is all I have. This is it. My blood, these bloody clothes, that's all I have. Israel has taken everything else, including my Palestinian passport, which I handed over, a legitimate Palestinian passport, which was given to me by the Palestinian Authority in 2008 when we arrived with the Free Gaza movement. I saw the murder, the mass murder that Israel perpetrated on the Mavi Marmara.
Are you in the Mavi Marmara?
Yes, Mavi Marmara. Yes, Mavi Marmara. Sorry, my head's a bit wrong. I saw 5 of the martyrs, one with the bullet right in his head. I was involved in disarming 2 Israeli commandos. One of the Israeli commandos, I was able to remove his pistol. I took that pistol, I removed the bullets. They were live. I'm an ex-Marine. I served in a war. I know what rounds, live rounds are. Those were live rounds. I took the gun and I hit it, and I gave the bullets to someone else. I was involved in disarming another Israeli commando, his assault rifle. We were able to separate him from his assault rifle. There were 3 Israeli commandos that we had complete control over. Complete. We had them in our possession. They were surrounded by at least 100, maybe 200 of us on the ship. They had no weapons. They were under our complete control. And I can tell you, they looked at us like we were them, and they thought we were going to do to them what they did to us. They thought they were going to die. They thought they were going to die. But of course, we let them go.
That's what happened. You are going to the very. Did they arrest you? I think.
Obviously, I've been forced out. They've also stolen my Palestinian passport. I am a Palestinian citizen. I have been given a Palestinian passport by the Palestinian government. I take that very seriously. I demanded to be deported to Gaza. That's where I was headed. That's where I wanted to go. Although I'm an Irish citizen as well, I did not have my Irish passport. Obviously, I've been forced out. They've also stolen my Palestinian passport. I am a Palestinian government. I take that very seriously. I demanded to be deported to Gaza. That's where I was headed. That's where I wanted to go. Although I'm an Irish citizen as well, I did not have my Irish shot. I've been beaten over the head. I'm not thinking totally clearly. They have my Palestinian passport as well. Otherwise, I would have it here for you.
Very good, ladies and gentlemen. We are pleased and honored to actually have Ken O'Keefe with us all the way from London. Ken, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Ken, let's just start with what's a former U.S. Marine out of California doing on the Mavi Marmara, taking supplies to the people of Gaza?
Well, you know, I've been involved in the issue of Palestine for several years now, and I was on the first 2 boats to head to Gaza in 41 years. First 2 boats to arrive by sea in 41 years back in August of 2008. It just so happened that I was with the Turkish ship because, you know, I have much respect for the Turkish people and their commitment to the cause. The fact that they raised the money and purchased those ships and had so many people going was a real testament to their dedication to the cause of justice. So it was a real honor to be able to be on that ship, and you know, I couldn't think of a better place to be if you really care about Palestine and justice in this world.
Now,
so
Ken.
Why wouldn't I be on the ship?
Ken, just so our viewers would understand that you were born in the United States, you were an American citizen until you actually renounced that citizenship. But tell me, growing up, I mean, what made you actually wanting to help the Palestinians as a United States Marine and actually a Gulf War veteran? So I'm sure, I mean, were you always looked at Palestinians and that look?
No, definitely not. Like every American, if I even heard of Palestine, that would have been all that I knew about it. And if I had heard anything about Palestine, it would almost always be a mischaracterization of the facts and what really is the root of the conflict. I didn't know anything about it until I reached my mid-20s, late 20s, which was well after I got out of the Marine Corps. The only reason why I joined the Marine Corps was because, like all Americans, just going through a standard public school education, which I really call more of an indoctrination than anything else, you're somewhat stripped of your ability to think. In fact, very, very much stripped of your ability to think for yourself. All we really do is regurgitate the information that's handed to us in school, and it's quite a tragedy, really. I only came to understand the truth about what was really happening in the world that I lived in, both environmentally, politically, historically, after I had a small injustice done to me in the Marine Corps, and I'm ever grateful for that injustice. It's nothing compared to what Palestinians, Iraqis, and a lot of people around the world endure every day, but it was enough to change my way of thinking and made me receptive to other people and who have experienced injustice.
Okay. Now, we do have a picture of you actually burning your American passport. Why did you do that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I never would have burned the passport. I actually had to burn two of them because if you believe in the right of self-determination, I'm the kind of person who believes in human rights. I believe if there's any one thing that has any hope for us to be a peaceful, a just and peaceful world, it is to unite under the banner of human rights. One of the human rights that I subscribe to and I intend to apply in my life is the right of self-determination. It's both an individual right and also a collective right. The right of self-determination means that you as an individual have the right to determine your political status, your religious status, and so on and so forth. I was born in America, and as an American citizen, you enter into a social contract. Whether you agree to it or not, you are entered into that contract. As a thinking moral adult, I came to realize what my country was involved in, committing itself to war, insane amounts of investment in war and in military-industrial complex, campaigns of torture, propping up brutal dictatorships, things like this, that I really wanted no part of. I don't agree to the contract. I don't agree to the obligations of the contract. So I renounced my citizenship. I did it lawfully. I did it peacefully. It's quite a process. There's a lot involved in it. It takes time. You have to hand over your passport, leave the country, and swear under oath everything you mean is true. I've done all that, but the United States refused to accept that I no longer was part of that contract and maintained that I was a U.S. citizen and gave me back my passport. I burned that passport, and ironically, when I was heading to Iraq to oppose the invasion of Iraq as the leader of the Human Shield Action, I was deported from Turkey on my way to Iraq, and I had to very reluctantly request a U.S. passport in order to go to Iraq and oppose the invasion of Iraq. I later burned that passport, which was the second one in Baghdad a year later. My reason for doing that is I think it's quite silly. Why should I have to do that? But if you don't respect my right to self-determination, if you want to continue to claim that I'm a U.S. citizen when I don't live there, I don't vote there, don't pay taxes, condemn the policies on every level, well, then I'll burn the passport to make it clear that, I say what I say, I do what I do, you can do what you do, I don't control that, but I'm not a U.S. citizen.
Okay. You are an Irish citizen now, and as we heard on the clip, that you are also a Palestinian citizen.
Yes, and I'm also a Hawaiian citizen. Some people will think, well, that's just ridiculous. I mean, he's a white guy. He's obviously not Palestinian.
Did you say a Hawaiian citizen?
Yes. Hawaii was stolen by America as well. Surprise, surprise. It was a sovereign nation, and that's a whole history. I made a film about it called The United States of Hypocrisy. That's online. People can see it. But I'm a Hawaiian citizen as well. And just to make the point very quickly, so people realize, there are a lot of people who are American citizens who weren't born there. They may have come from Africa or South America, whatever. And I don't think many people would say, well, you're not American. Of course they are. If you naturalize as an American citizen, whether you were born there or not, you're an American citizen. So I am also, likewise, a Palestinian citizen, an Irish citizen, and a Hawaiian citizen.
Okay. Now, you're trying to break the siege that is laid against the Palestinians in Gaza. Now, who's controlling that siege?
Well, some people will say that the Zionists are running the world and that it's their policy, and then others will say America's pulling the strings. And I think a lot of people are missing the mark altogether. And I think you have an audience probably that's wise enough and shrewd enough to know that the standard label of so-called conspiracy theorist and whatnot is just a means to try and marginalize people who might otherwise have something.
The audience we have, for the last 10 years, they have been used to all kind of truth on this program, so nothing will surprise them.
Yeah. Well, then I think if people really want to understand where the power lies, then there's a very poignant quote from Baron Rothschild in the 1800s, and he said he cared not what government was in power as long as he printed the money. And if you really want to know where the power is, then probably you should look at who's printing the money, who controls the money. And why did the U.S. government give $1 trillion to the bankers? Why did Europe give hundreds of billions of euros to the bankers? Why do the bankers get to print money at which the U.S. citizens get to pay interest on money they could print for themselves? Why was Kennedy killed?
So in your opinion, who's controlling America?
Well, the same people who control the vast majority of the world, and certainly the Western governments, banking families. Rothschilds are certainly among them, and there's others.
So I mean, these are the same people.
Those that control the printing of the money in the monetary system, they're the ones that have the power. They can buy anything they want. Basically. That's
fine. Ken, so what you're saying is that those who control these Zionists who have laid this siege on Gaza are very much the same people who control the United States here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yes, so let me ask you this. As a U.S. Marine, now to me, and I've said this many times, that I came from a country that was occupied militarily by Israel, to find out that it was occupied politically by Israel. And we're trying to do something about it. Wasn't it like much closer to you to liberate the United States from the influence of the Zionists than going across the world to liberate the Palestinians?
Well, I don't think the Zionists have the power that people think they do. They're a favored agent of the powers that be. And the real agenda here, and I think if we look at the facts and how history plays out and how politics works, you'll find that if you wanted peace, if you wanted justice, then you'd look at the policies of America or Israel and say, these people are either incredibly stupid or they're insane. I don't think they're either. The real agenda is to ensure that there is perpetual conflict. There's, of course, a lot of money to be made in war. I don't think many people would dispute that. Yeah. But more importantly, it ensures that people don't unite, because contrary to many of the cynical views that people hold, in truth, I've seen from my experience, and I've looked at history and also psychology and anthropology, people are actually very social and generally do not wish harm towards their neighbors. If they're pushed or pressed or violated and killed and stolen from and lied to and so on and so forth, they will fight and can become quite violent. But generally people around the world all want the same thing. They just want to live their life in dignity. They want to be able to put food on a table, take care of their family. They don't really care whether somebody has another religion or not, but they do care about whether their land is being stolen and their rights are being denied. If they're not being violated, then there generally is no problem amongst people. And we would naturally unite. We would naturally come together and start to work together and solve our problems. And that's the biggest fear that those who have power have, is that that happens. So they do everything they can to stoke the fires and ensure that there's perpetual conflict. That is exactly what they need, and the policies reflect that.
Yeah. Now, do you blame America for what is happening to, I guess, what is happening in the world?
America is an agent of the powers that hide in the shadows. So, I mean, if we're to look at the agent that's given the power, the Mafia Don, it's clear that America is responsible for more terrorism than any other entity out there.
Do you feel that American citizens are victims or culprits in this deal?
Well, they're both. They're both, and I include myself in that. I mean, I joined the Marine Corps and put myself in a position to be killed or kill. I was a victim of indoctrination. One of the things that you do in school, and I'm sure it's still done, is you say the Pledge of Allegiance every day, 5 days a week, and it ends with, and liberty and justice for all. Well, that's a ridiculous notion. I mean, we only need to ask the Native Americans, Black Americans, immigrants, innocent people who've been put to death. Can't ask them anymore, but ask the people who are innocent and still in prison. There's not liberty and justice for all in America, far from it. And yet you say that every day, and it becomes true. And that's how indoctrination works. Everyone else believes it. Everyone else says it. You say it every day. You come to believe it's true. Whether it's true or not, it becomes true to you. So Americans are victims of a process of indoctrination. They're not the only ones. There's indoctrination going on all around the world. But it is a victimization of the people, and it allows them to be party to mass murder. And, this is the one thing that I say, and in liberal circles make sure that I make no real favors and friends with the liberal left, and that is that, we can protest all we want, but in truth, when we pay our taxes, what we're doing is paying the executioner to murder people halfway around the world. We could, if we wanted to, choose to resist and simply not pay taxes. And I realize that the vast majority of people are not going to do that. However, it is an option. And if we chose to, we could refuse. And if enough of us did it, we could end it right now. We could end the murder of people halfway around the world. But unfortunately, not enough of us make that choice. We're not willing to pay that price. We're much more comfortable going to a protest or signing a petition. Again, I understand that, and I'm not condemning people, but let's not kid ourselves. Let's be honest. If we want to end these problems, we have the power to end it. We can do it. It's not up to someone else. It's up to us. There's no savior coming. Barack Obama's not going to save us. No one else is coming to save us. We're the only people that can do it. And we have a lot of options, many that we don't want to ponder because they require some significant sacrifice. But nonetheless, there are options there, and when we get really serious, we can make a better world. And for my part, as a father, as somebody who, before I was a father, realized, and I think the most important responsibility that we have as adults is to take seriously the future that we give to our children and future generations. And can we honestly look ourselves in the face and say, you know what, I'm doing everything that I can to try and make sure that I give my son, my daughter, my grandchildren a better world. And if you can say that, well, you're blessed, and that's part of my blessing. I could do a bit more, but I mean, I'm doing what I can. And I'd like to challenge people to do, even more.
Very good. Ken, let's take us to, before you guys left the port in Turkey, the authorities, I'm assuming that they searched the boat and they made sure that nothing is going in the boat except food, medicines, and toys. Did that take place?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was inherently a part of the voyage. I mean, of course, Israel was going to cry foul and claim that there were...
Now, what about the people that you guys had on the boat? Were they screened and... or just anyone who applied got on the ship?
I know there was a screening process. Even for myself, as an example, there was somebody that was, assigned to the UK, and in order for people to get on, the criteria wasn't, necessarily what international travel might require. Other than, you need a legal ID, but a lot of people had to raise money for the campaign, help pay for the cost of the ship and stuff like that.
Okay.
In my case, I didn't have to raise money. I have a reputation for being involved in causes of justice and citizen.
Now, when you left Turkey, did you guys think that you were going to be attacked, or did you put that possibility down that we might be attacked by the Israelis and they might sink the ship?
Well, I can speak for myself and say that I was really dead wrong. I thought, keep in mind, I was on the first two boats that arrived in Gaza in 41 years in August of 2008, and all the way up to the point of our departure. And that's two small boats with 46 people, much less coverage, much smaller scale. All the way up to the departure, the Israelis said we were nothing better than pirates and they were going to stop us. So they were saying the same things on this trip. But to me, I looked at it like, no way are they going to stop a ship like this one with 600 people who are very clearly determined to get to Gaza and are not going to lay down. I always knew that if Israel did something, it would be more of a problem for them than us, that we would win no matter what happened.
But the assumption that you might also lose your life, I mean, did you think about that?
To be honest, I put myself in situations that I thought were far more risky than this one. I really didn't.
So losing your life was something that you thought it might happen.
You know what? I subscribe to Malcolm X and his view on this subject, and he was asked, "What is the price for freedom?" And his answer to that was, "The price for freedom is death. And if you're not willing to pay that price, then don't use that word in your vocabulary."
Okay.
I mean, it's there's different degrees of commitment, and I think everyone has something to offer, and not everyone is willing to walk into the potential.
Okay, Ken.
Potential loss of life.
Okay. Now, take us to that night when the attack actually took place. Where were you at that moment?
Well, I was at the back of the ship on the second deck from sea level, so the second deck up. It was one of the probable areas that the Israelis would try and board. The assault boats, the rigid hold inflatables, came up to time to the morning prayer, which was no coincidence, and they weren't able to get on from the side. I mean, we had people all around the side of the ship, and they realized fairly quickly that wasn't going to happen, when they tried.
So what were you defending with? Like, what kind of weapons did you have on the ship to defend against those invaders?
We just had, we had chairs. we had, as you can see, there were some, sticks or bars. Eventually those were used, but they weren't used until Israelis were on the ship. I don't think there's any disputing that. The bottom line is, the predictable consequences of the Israelis coming on board a ship like that, which effectively was transporting critically needed cargo to a desperately impoverished people.
So now,
it's going to be problematic.
I just want to know the mood before they attacked. That everybody, were there like different groups, like the passengers? There were like 600 and plus of them. Like, did you guys divide yourself into like fighters and medical personnel and the children and the women? You put them inside. Tell me about your strategy. I mean, you can't be fighting a force without having a strategy.
Yeah, I only realized that there was this decision, this choice to, those who wanted to defend the ship and those who were journalists who were going to, film any kind of altercation. And of course, we had women who, I don't think any of the women were involved in any of the defending of the ship at all. And there was even a baby on board, a 1-year-old baby. When I was asked, this was like a day before we headed towards Gaza. Did I want to film or was I going to help defend? My response immediately was, I definitely want to defend the ship.
Okay.
It's something that I feel capable in doing, and ultimately, although I did not think the Israelis would do it, they did.
Tell me.
I knew that was the natural position.
Okay. Now you've taken a gun away from a guy, a handgun, and then a machine gun from another guy. Tell me about those two stories.
Well, what happened was there were brothers up on the top of the ship, as you can see in the footage, and the Israelis started fast roping down from the helicopter. I moved from the back of the ship at that point up to the deck below the roof, the top deck. And when I got up there, and by that point I'd seen one dead body. I'd already seen one with a bullet in the gentleman's straight in his forehead, and he was a photographer, a father of two. I saw him, so I already knew that there was deadly force being used. There were percussion grenades being used. There were rounds being fired. There was smoke bombs, tear gas. So it was very chaotic. It was an attack. And one of the commandos fell from the top deck, or was pushed over from the top deck, and fell down to the deck that I was on. Myself and another brother immediately descended upon him. I saw that he had his 9mm pistol. That was the first thing I went for. Again, knowing that they're using lethal force. I mean, if he got to that gun before I did, you know, myself and the other brother could have easily been taken out. So that became my top priority. I managed to get that weapon off of him. And as I've said previously in other interviews, I mean, if I was a terrorist, which I've been accused of, I would think that it would have been a dream come true to just take a weapon off of Israeli commando who's just killed somebody or could have been killing somebody and have his complete, you know, destiny in my hands. I didn't end his life. Not only did I not end his life, I took the weapon and I emptied the bullets out of it. They were real bullets. I gave those to somebody else on the ship in the hopes that it could be used as evidence later, and then I hid the weapon. I made sure the weapon could not be used again. I then came into contact with another Israeli commando, and myself and another brother removed an assault rifle. This was not a paint gun. This was an assault rifle. He got the assault rifle off of him while I was pulling his arm away and helping him secure that. So those were the two commandos that I came in direct contact with, but I also saw 3 commandos, which we had 3 completely disarmed, under our complete control, surrounded by easily 100 men. You know, they would not be alive today if we had chosen otherwise.
Now, let me ask you the question. I probably alluded to it earlier. Did you guys decide that you are going to defend the ship when you left Turkey, no matter what happens?
Yeah, and that was very clearly stated by the leader.
Whose decision was that, though?
Well, the organization had made that decision long ago, and this is where I think. But
now, Ken, just stay with me for a second. If that's, I mean, you know, knowing that the Israelis would have these gunboats, they're going to have helicopters. I mean, the might of the Israeli army is well known around the world. So those who took the decision to actually defend this, I mean, I'm sure they knew they could not have defended it more than 5 or 10 minutes before the Israelis take it over. Why not just let the Israelis, they're going to take the ship anyway, so why not just allow them to do what they have to do?
Yeah, you know, that's pretty much what the Indian people faced in the British colonial empire. And I have to revert back to Gandhi, and I think people totally misunderstand Gandhi. I, like Gandhi, believe in nonviolence, and I believe that violence should never be used except in self-defense. And ultimately, what happened was the Israelis made a decision where the predictable consequences would be loss of life. We were transporting cargo to a population of people that desperately need that cargo.
I understand that, but why make a decision to defend against the indefensible? I mean, you cannot defend that ship. And nine people lost their lives. It seems to me like now, you know, what about if just the Israelis took over the ship and they dragged it into the port of Ashdod? I guess it would be it, and nothing would have happened. These 9 people would be alive.
Yeah, you know what else would have happened?
Huh?
The Israelis would have gotten away with turning on their continuing propaganda machine. They would have talked about how they're the most moral army in the world. The concrete and steel would not have reached Gaza, which it's not going to reach Gaza. And Rafah crossing would not be open right now. The UN would not be talking about a resolution to end the blockade. The United States would not have said that the blockade is unsustainable. The EU would not have said the blockade must end. None of that would have happened if we would have just sat down and simply.
So it was a determination on your part or the organizers' part from the beginning that if we are to succeed in this, we're going to have to spill some blood here.
Unfortunately, the Palestinian people die every day, and look what happens when 9 foreigners who are on a peaceful mission to transport aid die. It's amazing how 9 lives like that translate to such an uproar in the international community, and unfortunately, this is the world we live in. And, you know, when Palestinians died, you know, just a couple of days later, 4 of them shot dead by the Israelis on the beaches of Gaza. You know, are we talking about that? No, that's just another day in Gaza.
Ken, do you think the movement, the Free Gaza movement, is more or has been politicized and taken over by forces bigger than its own?
Yeah, well, you know what? It's bigger than the Free Gaza movement. You know, the Turkish people in IHH are not Free Gaza. Free Gaza, I was part of Free Gaza's first mission. I served as a captain on that mission, and I'm proud to have been a part of it. But, you know, as happens, we can look at historically how organizations or groups start off in their initial principles and courage are really admirable, and then they turn into something that isn't quite what it was in the beginning. And, you know, there's always that danger, whether or not.
So do you feel as you know, as Ken O'Keefe, who was, you know, one of the pioneers in this thing, do you feel that the decision or the decision process has been snatched away from you?
No, not at all. You know, look, Free Gaza and the Western tactic of you know, transporting into Gaza is pretty much to lay down. You know, I mean, you may have some passive resistance, but none of those ships are ever going to pose any real potential problem for Israel because, as you point out, Israel has the capacity to do whatever it wants. And if we just cooperate effectively and let them take over the ship, and, you know, we peacefully go on our way to Ashdod and get deported, Israel can handle that. But what they can't handle is people who are willing to die and who will use non-lethal means to defend themselves and effectively force Israel into a position where either you're going to be terribly embarrassed by having, you know, a large group of your commandos captured by people and released, as we did with 3 of them, or you're going to kill some people. And unfortunately, this is the world we live in. It's no different from Gandhi's day. And I must make this clear. I want people to take a look at what Gandhi said. And Gandhi said what I would say, and I agree with him on pretty much every count, that I absolutely agree with nonviolence. If the Israelis did have any kind of morality, they would not have attacked that ship, and there would have been no need for any violence at all. But because they attacked that ship, I'm going to subscribe to what Gandhi said. And what Gandhi said was, between cowardice and violence, he would advise violence. Let me repeat that one more time. Gandhi said, between cowardice and violence, he would advise violence. What we were doing was not just defending that cargo and ourselves. We were defending the rights of 1.5 million people who had been subjected to medieval-type conditions for years now, including 800,000 children. Imagine if that was your child in Gaza, and he is being subjected, or she is being subjected to these kinds of conditions: no clean drinking water, malnutrition, anemia, traumatized from bombing campaigns, war, violence, all sorts of things like that. That's your child. If you look at it like it's your child, and you're transporting critically needed cargo to your child, then what would you do? Would you say, I can't pick up a metal bar and defend myself because that would be immoral? No, you would not. You would say, I'm going to do whatever it takes to defend my child, and I'm going to make sure that anyone who tries to violate my child is going to have one hell of a challenge with me. And what we did was exactly that. Yet, when we had control of 3 of their commandos, again, totally disarmed, what did we do? We let them go. So, if we wanted to lynch them, what the hell? Why didn't we lynch them? We had them. Is somebody trying to tell me, or the other hundreds of witnesses on that ship, that somehow, some way, we didn't have control of them and their destiny was not in our hands? We never wanted any violence, but we were attacked, just as the children of Gaza were attacked. On that ship was cargo critical to them. We defended that cargo, just as the Indian people defended themselves against the British colonial empire.
Now, Ken, I'm a little bit confused. You know, George Galloway takes also cargo and goes through Egypt and stuff. Is that part of the same group? Because I mean, is he part of your group?
No, and I don't, you know, claim any group, and you know, I don't think,
okay.
You know.
But I mean, do we have like 2 separate groups working here for the Free Gaza
There's a lot of different. At this point, there's a lot of different groups from various countries. I mean, you know, now there's a couple of ships that are planning on heading out from Lebanon. You know, Iran is looking to send ships. We've obviously got the Turkish people. There was a Swedish ship, a Greek ship. You know, there was an Irish ship. So you've got people from all over the world, and you know, that's a beautiful thing. You know, I mean, I think we should all agree to disagree on certain things, but what we all agree on is that the blockade is going to end. And at this point, I'm really happy. It gives me great joy to know that I don't have any question at all. The blockade is ending. It's in its dying days. It's just not up to Israel. It's not up to the United States. Over. Done.
Yeah.
I don't care. It doesn't matter how much you want it. It's over, and people have made that decision.
Yeah, I agree that the blockade is dying, and I think within the next days or weeks at the most, that we are going to see at least the Rafah border crossing will be open, and probably some sort of an agreement on sea travel that would probably be searched like the the United Nations might put some force there to search ships, etc. Now, what worries me though, Ken, is when that happens, you almost will have to say goodbye Gaza, because it would be torn away from the rest of Palestine, and then you still have the majority of Palestinians in the West Bank. So you're very much going to have two Palestines there, or maybe just Gaza called Palestine, and then the West Bank is going to be eaten up by the settlements.
Yeah, sure, but that's no reason to continue the blockade, of course. I'm sure you wouldn't argue that. That's been an issue for a while now. The non-contiguous Palestinian territories is a serious issue. And the whole so-called peace process is one big farce. For me personally, let me just say, I mean, this is my personal view, and I'm glad to see that more and more people are agreeing with me. To me, the so-called two-state solution is the biggest disaster of all. There will never be any justice nor peace if there's two states with this huge disparity in both income, economy, military might, and so on and so forth. The South African model seems to me the only way. And if you would have asked the apartheid leaders of South Africa back in the late 80s, are you willing to share power and have a true democracy where everyone has equal voting rights and whatnot, I'm pretty sure you would have found that they would have been equally objectionable to that idea. They actually did not have a choice in the end. To me, I look at the Holy Land, whether you call it Israel, whether you call it Palestine, and I say to myself, is it right for any of the major monotheistic religions to have complete control and domination over that area? I think not. I think the only way for this world is to allow the three major religions to have autonomy and effective access to the Holy Land. For any one group, whether it's Muslims, whether it's Christians, or whether it's Jews, is wrong. There's always going to be conflict, and we'd have to be foolish to think that one group could have effective control and access and deny the others access and not have problems. We're going to have big problems. The only way is to have, in my opinion, one state where everyone is treated equally. And beyond that, actually, that's a microcosm of what we need in this world. I was just talking to a brother in Pakistan today, and he wanted to come on the next trip, the next flotilla. I told him it was in September. I said, look, if you want to come, you need to be able to get to Turkey. And he told me, yeah, I can't. I don't know if I can do that. This is the way our world functions. I have an Irish passport now. I can go to Pakistan. I can go to Turkey. I can go wherever the hell I want. But somebody who lives in Pakistan, or somebody who lives in India, or somebody who lives in Africa can't do that. That's wrong. And it can't be that way. We need to have a world in which human rights are respected across the board, and everybody's treated equally. It may be nice for us, those of us who live in prosperous Western countries, to talk about peace and, talk about this, that, and the other, but in truth, we're getting to enjoy the fruits of some form of liberty while other people are sucking on it and not able to enjoy even basic freedom.
Well,
that's a problem. And it's a problem, and that's at the root of all of our problems and war and so on and so forth.
Very good. Well, you can put my name down. I can make it to Turkey. Now, let me...
the more the merrier.
Okay, good. Let me ask you this. We've seen some pictures of you, with bloody face, and you were beaten up. Is that during the scuffle with the soldiers on the ship, or is that after?
Yeah, no, that was definitely after. That was at Ben Gurion Airport, just before they were attempting to deport me. And yeah, no, so no, it did not happen on the ship.
Well, what happened? What did they do to you?
Well, what happened was we were at the airport And despite the fact that myself and some of the others had completely not consented to the deportation and wanted to go to court, they were going to deport us anyway. There was a brother there, an American, who had clearly visible bruises on his arms and had a black eye, and he was handcuffed, and they were going to take him somewhere he didn't want to go. He sat down on the ground. They picked him up rather harshly. He started screaming in pain. Those of us who were there, we got up. We started yelling, objecting. The police came. There was a bit of a melee. Then one of them cracked me over the head with a baton. My head started bleeding profusely. I proceeded to tell him what a coward I thought he was, and yelling and screaming. At that point, I'm just the kind of person who doesn't respond well to bullies at all. And I put myself in more risky situations because I just don't respond well. So I'm not altogether surprised that it happened to me, but at the end of the day, I never raised a fist or an arm or anything to the police, but I certainly voiced my opinion at their ill treatment of a brother, and certainly at what I consider to be cowardly.
Were there other people who got hurt or beaten up in Israeli custody?
Yeah, actually, there was a Turkish brother who had his arm broken, and he was objecting because of the injury I had just incurred. I got hit over the head, then I was put in a chokehold to the point of blacking out. I was kicked or punched in the ribs, I don't know which, and in the process of him protesting about what was happening to me, his arm got broken, a couple others got hit. So, I mean, this all happened in the airport. I mean, there's a long list of indignities and just horrendous, unprofessional.
Now, what kind of interrogation, like when they got you off the ship, what kind of interrogations did they interrogate everybody one-on-one, or did they know who you were?
Yeah. Well, they didn't interrogate me, believe it or not. They did interrogate some people, from what I understand. I had at least one of the IDF soldiers say he remembered me. I'm sure there were some that remember me because I've been there before. I spent 20 days in Israeli jail back in 2004 and was deported as a so-called security threat based on secret evidence. Truth is, I was actually involved in a peace initiative trying to broker a ceasefire. Nonetheless, there were some people who knew me, but they didn't actually question me. And I'm wondering, are you going to lead to the next accusation, which is that I'm a so-called terrorist as well?
Well, according to them, everyone on board of that ship were terrorists and Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, I mean, that blanket kind of statement is fairly ludicrous in itself. But,
now, let me ask you a quick question. The show is about to end. We have a couple of minutes left. Were there anyone on board of that ship that you would say he belonged to a certain militant group?
I couldn't possibly know, but I didn't see anything like that. And let me just make clear, although you say they've accused everybody on the ship, they've specifically named 5 people as terrorists, including myself, and they said that I was going to Gaza to train a commando unit for Hamas. So I'm putting a slightly special category there. Of course, the accusation is totally absurd, and my life is an open book, and I encourage people, if they want to know the truth, to take a look at what I've done. That's indicative of who I am and what I'm about. As to other people, I'm quite convinced that everybody who was on that ship was there for the same reason I was, and that is to break the blockade, to deliver cargo, which is critical to the civilian population and children in Gaza.
Okay, now these 5 people that you're talking about, including yourself, did they keep anyone in Israel, or did they let everyone go?
No, they let everyone go. Not only that, they wanted to get rid of us as quickly as possible. I did everything I could to stay and fight in court, and they wouldn't have it. They refused. They didn't want us there. Believe you me, after that public relations disaster, they did not want people in their jail.
Did you have to sign that little piece of paper they wanted you to sign, or no?
No, not only did I not sign it, I made it very clear from the get-go that I refused to accept the deportation and wanted my day in court, which, according to Israeli law, should have been my right, but of course law doesn't really function.
So what did they do? Just picked you up screaming and hollering and threw you in a plane?
At the end of the day, I really, At the end of the day, I did actually go in front of a judge. It was quite ridiculous. I was given, 5 minutes notice. I didn't have access to an attorney, wasn't allowed to make any calls, and I was told, okay, you can see a judge. I was only, I think it was like 2 or 3 people left at that point. Everyone else, all the hundreds of people had gone. I was the last one there. And so I went in front of a judge and got a judgment. At that point, I didn't yell and scream and make a big scene.
Okay, very good. Ken, all I have time to say is thank you very much. It has been an honor having you in the program. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, brother. You take care.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Ken O'Keefe from London. He is a former U.S. Marine who was trying to help the Palestinians. We will see you next Thursday. Good night. See you then. Go do the right thing.